Well, welcome once again to Meteorology Lab. Starting a little bit late here, but I'm clicking the maps and getting things set up as quickly as I can. And here we are, looking at last year's storms. So I guess we're going to have to wait until next week to get our first actual spring storms. But maybe we'll see a little bit of this and have some very interesting stuff from the drone in a few days. Okay, so let's head to the charts and see what things look like tonight. Our cold front that swept through Texas yesterday is pushed out into the Gulf, and the tail end is banking up against the higher terrain of Mexico down in this area here. Looks like we got another reinforcement of that cold air coming southward, moving through the Central Plains, and it's being driven by this high pressure area. So even when the fronts look kind of disarrayed like you see here, it can help to actually just look at the high pressure areas instead. So this high right here, it's pretty much covering this entire zone, all the way up from Alberta down to the Central Plains. So that's all a cold air mass, and we can see it on the NAM plots here from College of DuPage. This is 925 millibars, 2,500 feet MSL. It does vary according to the density of the air, but we can use this to visualize the cold air coming south. And there it is earlier today about 1 p.m. And if you don't see it there, when we animate this, you'll definitely see it moving south through the Texas Panhandle. There it is. Leading edge tomorrow. Looks like that's going to be rolling into Oklahoma City down to Midland. But it's undergoing a lot of modifications. So only this section up in Iowa, northern Illinois, and Wisconsin will be unusually cold. And looks like a third surge coming southward tomorrow into the Dakotas. And let's see what happens to this one. You can see it barreling south towards Missouri and Kansas by Saturday. It's looking kind of like that right there. And you can see that the brunt of this is heading more towards the mid-Atlantic region. So most of the cold air looks like it's going to be up in the northeast, where it's been what seems like almost every day this winter. And there it goes. There's the high pressure associated with that burst of cold air. Meanwhile, in the Great Plains on Saturday, south flow coming up from the Gulf. And the dew points out in the western Gulf are coming up pretty quickly there. And let's go ahead and take a look at the thickness chart. So this will give us our synoptic picture of what's happening around the U.S. And we can see that the fronts here are very weak. We're getting into the warm season. And we can't even really hardly pick out that front in the Gulf. We have to use continuity and actual observational plots to find out where that is. Here's the high pressure area centered across Colorado right now. And here's our Alberta Clipper coming southward. So there's the warm front moving through Fargo and Grand Forks, and the leading edge right around Saskatoon up to Edmonton. And all the cold air concentrated in northern Saskatchewan and Alberta there. Looks pretty quiet out west. If you look at the overall picture, looks like kind of a thermal ridge through this area here. So conditions are probably kind of warm in the desert southwest. And that's really about all we have going on right now. 250 millibar flow is looking like this. This is as of this morning. What helps is to consider the large-scale picture before looking at the individual waves. So the dominant picture we see here is something like this. I'll just draw the lines on here. So we got a long wave trough across the east coast and a ridge on the west coast. So when we have a ridge out west and a trough out east, that tends to mean northwesterly flow for the Central Plains and conditions a little drier than usual. When we have the opposite, where the flow is like this, talking about the long waves, when it looks like that, trough west and ridge east, That means unsettled weather in the central U.S. It's good for storm systems coming out of the Pacific there. And it also means that there's warm weather on the East Coast when that happens. So, superimposed on this picture, we've got these smaller scale waves. There's that one right there. That's associated with that cold air coming out of Canada there. And we've got this other one in the Mississippi River Valley. Each of these associated with a cold air mass. And then we've got this very strong ridging across Washington and British Columbia. That represents warm air in that region. So I would bet temperatures in Spokane, Boise, Pendleton, places like that are probably fairly warm. And then we can take a look down at 850 millibars. This is about 5,000 feet above sea level. And usually what I'm looking at here is the flow and the dew points. Dew points appear to be about 10 to 12 Celsius, which is lower 50s. And we have northerly flow. And that's due to that cold air mass that has come through the central and southern plains. So we can see a little bit of anticyclonic flow in Texas. So that's our 850 millibar high coming in behind that front that's out in the Gulf. And it's this zone out here, the western side of that high, that's associated with the development of a low-level jet. Looks like the temperatures have come down in central Canada, or I should say they've moderated a bit. So we're not looking too bad up there in northern Manitoba. A little bit of a warm-up, and looks like the leading edge of that surge, so running something like that there at 850 millibars. All right, we'll take a look at the small-scale details here. So, taking a look at Texas, we've got 70s and 60s, and dew points are in the 40s in most places. We have to go all the way down to Brownsville, way down here at the bottom part of the map, to find the 60s. Okay, elsewhere around the U.S., there's the southwestern U.S. under the influence of the upper level high. Temperatures coming up above 100 in the Colorado River region, 94 there at Phoenix, and 93 at Las Vegas. And you can see the thermal trough across the Mojave Desert there. Up in the northwestern U.S., you can see a data artifact. We've been getting bad data from Lakeview, Oregon, so I'm going to draw this QC box and inspect it. That's one thing you can do in digital atmosphere that you can't do on the internet. And you can actually change the values. So let me bring that up here real quick. And there's our QC panel, and we can see that we've got, let's see, this pressure looks good. That pressure looks good. Oh yeah, I deleted the data already. So what I did is I went in there before the broadcast and got rid of it. So if we replot that, it should be gone. So problem is solved, and we put the pressure lines back on there, and things are looking much better. All right, in the Great Lakes region, we've got that next cold front coming south. The position of these fronts here, that's determined by the Weather Prediction Center at INSEP, and they're lagging a little bit behind the data. The actual low pressure center looks like it's around Green Bay right there, and the leading edge of the front looks like it's going southwest to just south of Des Moines and down towards the Topeka area. And the warm front looks like that is probably through southern Michigan, kind of like that, maybe a little further north. Got a nice mild 60-degree reading right there around, I want to say that's Flint, or I don't know the cities in central Michigan too well, but that contrasts with the 50s and 40s further up north. around the UP of Michigan there. And the northeast, just kind of mild, cool temperatures, 40s in that area. And then down in the southeastern U.S., that front is still slowly moving eastward. Florida underneath southwesterly flow with mild temperatures and dew points around the lower 60s. All right, so let's head into the satellite pictures. And I'll check in on chat there and see what's going on. We'll give you the visible imagery here. Let me get these last dark frames out of there. And go a little bit further west to where there's weather. And you can see some of the subtropical cirrus moving across this region here. And then down the lower levels you can see cumulus fields, a little bit of elevated convection in western Oklahoma. And looks like a little bit of high-based cumulus and altocumulus in western Kansas there. And wow, look, there's actually thunderstorms or showers going up in the Sierra Nevadas around Lake Tahoe. Just west of Reno, out in that area, some pretty good anvils in that region there. So probably a good wave moving through that region at this time. Okay, let me take a look at chat. Before I get too much further, I did want to thank our new Patreon donors. I think I've mentioned Gregory Kerner already and Joseph Nixon. I think I might have mentioned them last week. But also Samuel Messias, or Messias. I appreciate the new pledge there. And Paul Tikowski, who donated, I think, on Monday. And that's much appreciated. And as we pull together these funds, we'll be able to use that to bring some enhancements to the channel. And I've been talking for a while about upgrading the internet, and I'm not quite ready to pull the trigger on that because it's going to be kind of expensive to bring it out where we are, but I am looking at doing that once we start rolling into a severe weather season here. Okay, let me take a look at chat here. Christian Flock checking in from Enid, Oklahoma, 68 degrees there. Ron Chalfant in the mountains of Southern California, 65. Got Carl Perghoff with us, and Erica Baker, Coffeyville, Kansas, 60 degrees. David Lumbert there at Maumelle, Arkansas, 64 degrees, dew point at 50. And he mentions he's 7 miles northeast of Little Rock. Okay, yeah, that's going to be out there around Jacksonville. Very good. Okay, Willie Greenway is here, and Fun with Tech. Ryan Toomey's mentioning warmer today, temperatures in the mid-80s. And Ryan, I did get your photos there, and I saved them, but I have not set those up in the studio program, so I'm going to try to show you that tomorrow. A very good picture of a supercell in the Fort Lauderdale area. I might be able to bring up one of them. This is the program I'm using, so let me see if I can bring this up. Just give me a second here. I'm going to switch off to a blank screen. Well, there might be something there. Oh, that's an image that we used from a couple days ago. And give me just a second. I'm going to add existing imagery and bring up Ryan's image. And yeah, here it is. So this is the only image I can really get set up at this time. But that shows that storm there. Fort Lauderdale, and I forgot the... Let me see if I can get the time or the date on that. Yeah, April 10th, so that was a couple weeks ago there. But you can see a classic tail cloud there extending off to the right. Some nice striations, a nice helical corkscrewing updraft there, and in the background you can see the forward flank downdraft in the rear on the right side, and there's kind of that hollow area on the very left side, and that's the RFD kind of coming around cyclonically into the back of the updraft there. So I appreciate that, Ryan, and I'm assuming this is your image, and that's very impressive. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that from Florida, at least that I can remember. Okay, so back to our products, and yeah, let me get through the last of the chat. Robert Pleasant bringing up the computer model MPAS. Have not seen that yet. Better than the GFS and the Euro. Kathy Vanas, 90 degrees in Zion National Park. Willie Greenway asking about the books. How to interpret data. Yeah, a weather map handbook will. Weather and forecasting has a little bit of radar information. But if you really want to get into radar, you'll want the Weather Radar Handbook, and that's on the weathergraphics.com site. And Carl Berghoff's got a training link there. And I'm just reading the chat. Few links there from Fun with Tech. Derek Seymour hoping for a few thunderstorms in eastern North Carolina. There we. Is that showing North Carolina? Yeah, there's a little bit of an upper level low spinning through that area. You can see it right there, just southwest of Asheville. And pretty good dry slot coming in the backside, and typically this zone here is very unstable. Of course, most of the moisture is further to the east, and looks like a little line of cells out there in western North Carolina. The program Fun with Tech is asking, yeah, that's Digital Atmosphere. That's the program that I wrote to do weather analysis. Mike Estwick says that was Lansing I was pointing out earlier. Megan John, 55 in Minnesota. Ryan Toomey says May 1st is hot, looking to be hot. Okay, David Moore is here. Megan John watching oil refinery updates, explosion updates. I appreciate the comments, Dustin Knight, about the books and software. And Michelle Curlin says, look at that beaver tail on that picture. Yeah, Ryan, yeah, that's definitely quite an awesome photo there. So one last look at that, and let me get the other charts set up here. Okay, we've got a new system coming on shore. It's pretty wrapped up. There it is on the west coast. Very large trough out in that area, and band of, looks like some baroclinicity there in California and Nevada, and we are getting those thunderstorms or showers in the higher terrain along the Nevada-California border there. So let me take a quick look at the surface data, see what it looks like. You can see the dew points there are pretty low, 25 to 30, but you don't need much moisture out in the higher terrain and in the western U.S. to get good storms going. Of course, they don't get much severe weather, but they definitely do get showers anytime the dew point gets up into the 30s and 40s with a little bit of upper air instability. So, instability, let's take a look at the SKUTs. And we'll probably start out looking at Reno. So there's the text for Reno. Let's get the graphic. And there we go. There's our current SKUT from Reno. So it's pretty dry in the low levels. There's a couple of caveats about that. One is that the moisture can be different when you get away from the radiosonde sounding. So it's important to use some of the surface data to see if the parcels in that area where the storms are have better moisture. So I might be looking to see if the dew points are a little bit higher in that area. Also, this is a good sounding for elevated storms. See, we can definitely get some partial lift going in this stuff. Not much instability, but you can see that there's this little sliver here where we've got a little bit of cape. And let's check out the Dallas area. Starting to get that springtime loaded gun look. We're not quite there yet. Dew points are still in the 40s, but it's taken that shape where you can see in the mid-levels we're getting some warming there, contrasting with this slightly cooler tropical layer down near the surface, and a little bit of mid-level moisture. And we'll take a look at Norman. Pretty similar there. You can see the capping is not quite as strong there. However, if we go to the south around Del Rio, that's closer to that subtropical ridge, and you can see that the environment there is quite a bit warmer. 700 millibar temperatures. They're close to 10 Celsius. So even if we have some decent moisture in that area, we would certainly be capped with that temperature. So everybody's probably wondering about next week. Severe weather is on the horizon. We'll start out with conditions. Yeah, I forgot we got a couple showers in the area. Let me take a quick look at that. Yeah, these are just elevated showers. Looks like it's along that front coming out of the panhandles. And we can see the dew points in that area, 40s, pretty much 40s in that inflow region. So, yeah, well, these are elevated storms, so not much potential with that. So, now that we got an idea of the pattern that we've got going on, let's look at the forecast. So the short term, there's the showers. They're moving southeast with the front, and looks like they're diurnal. They dissipate by about 1 to 2 in the morning, falling apart in the Dallas area, but that cold surge is coming south. That'll sweep through much of Texas during the day Friday, and then we'll have high pressure for late Friday and Saturday. Okay, we do got the European model, so we'll try to take a look at midweek. So here's that cold air coming out of western Canada and the northwest U.S. And we can see that moves southeast into Texas. Another little chunk of cold air coming down also. And then by Saturday morning, pretty big high there in Ontario. Let me see where that came from. Okay, yeah, that's just that air mass moving southeast out of central Canada there. So that quickly moves out into the eastern U.S., and we've got return flow setting up for Sunday. So now we're looking at the cyclones, and here's a good one. That's probably a baroclinic system approaching from the west coast. This is Monday morning. You can see the lee side troughing is already setting up in Colorado. Then by Tuesday, got a kind of a more of a closed circulation there around the Oklahoma Panhandle. That looks to be the system out west. I'm guessing that that's a baroclinic system coming out of that region. And yeah, it looks like it pops out. It's kind of hard to diagnose this without upper air contours or thickness lines or even potential temperature. We're just looking strictly at the pressure field here, and I'm trying to guess where the fronts are. There's definitely one up to the north, and there may be one coming out of Colorado. And yeah, there comes the wave moving out into the Great Lakes on Thursday. Okay, so that gives us a rough idea of what's happening across the Great Plains for midweek, and now we'll take a look at the GFS. In fact, we'll look at the dew point. So let's put this in motion here. There's the cold air, first chunk of cold air coming south through Texas. And you can see the dew points, they fall off a little bit, but due to evapotranspiration and very weak flow, it seems like they stay constant right around 50 through the weekend. However, they're starting to cycle around to the south, developing the southerly flow there on Saturday. And it looks like we're starting to form up the dry line on Sunday, out around Roswell, Guadalupe Peak, and Springfield, and Clayton. More moisture coming up for Monday. Some 60s starting to show up down in San Antonio and Austin. And this may be when we start seeing some storms there along that dry line, just off the Caprock. And then for Tuesday, this is the picture that we're looking at. Flow is pretty unsettled out in this region, and due to this broad cyclonic circulation in this area, that's too large to be a thermal low. So that's going to be our baroclinic system there Tuesday night. Meanwhile, out in the plains, dry line, cold front, and there's kind of an Alberta clipper up in that region there. Then we go into Wednesday. Moisture surge comes up, 70s all the way to Oklahoma City, dew points in the 70s. And then our dry line runs from about Elk City down to Abilene and down to Del Rio. So by evening, we're looking at a pattern kind of like this. You can see the dry line very well defined. Behind the dry line, gusty southwest winds. Ahead of the dry line, south flow with upper 60s and low 70s dew points. This is a good recipe here for severe weather. And then up to the north, we've got a Canadian front starting its trek down through Colorado. For Thursday, things will probably look a little bit different since much of the upper level dynamics are moving to the east. And you can see that carries one of the main waves away into the Midwest. So by Thursday, we're looking at mostly a cold front coming through Texas, but we do have the moisture impinging on that front. 70s dew points near that front. So somewhere it's going to be raining. That's a pretty certain bet there. And there's that dry line out around the hill country. And then things should start clearing out for Friday. That cold front pushes everything down off the coast. High pressure coming back in behind. And then we're just waiting for the next weather system to be approaching from the west. So it looks like the flow brings up the moisture. It gets reestablished around Wednesday the 9th. And then we're probably looking at more severe weather episodes towards Mother's Day there. And that's the end of the sequence there. So really not a whole lot new from yesterday, and I can maybe pull up a forecast sounding for Wednesday just to see what the air mass looks like. We'll do an 18Z sounding around Gainesville, Texas. And this is showing a bit more of a loaded gun there. Very nice mid-level lapse rates there. And very good moisture. It's got some good depth all the way up to 850 millibars. Dew points running about 65 to 70 in that. And you can see that the instability, the parcels show a lot of cape there. Capes all the way up to 2,500 to 3,000. So I think we are set for midweek, but it's impossible to really pin it down any more than that because the upper level dynamics driving Wednesday's events are still out in Asia. And there's a lot of time between now and then for them to evolve, and we just don't have the kind of details that we need to really forecast this. So we'll take one last look at it Friday. We'll take our weekend break, and then we'll explore it on Sunday. And Sunday should be a very interesting Meteorology Lab webcast. We'll have that severe weather episode close at hand, and we'll go through all the details and really try to pin down what's coming for next week. But I definitely think we're looking at maybe some moderate risks at the very least. Maybe for Tuesday and Wednesday there. And the rest of it we'll just have to see. Okay, one last look at chat. Weather Map Handbook is good too. I appreciate that, Mike Estwick. Weather Analysis and Forecasting. A little discussion there about my books. And yeah, welcome to the webcast, Michelle Curlin. And for those of you who send in Patreon donations, our new Patreon donors, that's very much appreciated. Okay, so we've got pretty much fair weather, so I'll probably just go ahead and sign off for now. But like I said, we'll take a look at things tomorrow, and then our big update will be coming on Sunday. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, all.